Americans may see corporate media stories about Muslim terrorism in the Philippines. This peaceful nation was declared a terrorist battleground by American President George Bush many years ago. A few hundred U.S. troops are quietly based there to assist, but this war on terror is fake. Muslims in the southern Philippines have fought for independence for centuries, yet there is little terrorism in the Philippines today. Evidence suggests that the American CIA is responsible for some of the few random bombings each year used to justify an American presence. Muslims in the Philippines are loosely organized as the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, a collection of tribal groups whose peaceful leaders are recognized by the Philippine government. The word Moro comes from the Spanish term from their 400-year colonial occupation. The Spaniards called Muslims in the Philippines the same thing as the Muslims they once fought in southern Spain, Moros from Morocco. They occupied the large southern island of Mindanao and refused to become Catholics. The Spanish only controlled a few forts in Mindanao during their colonial rule. After the U.S. Army conquered the Philippines in 1902, American troops fought these Muslims. Most of the Philippines had been subdued, but the fierce Muslims held out longer. The U.S. Army occupied former Spanish forts, while Moros raided villages and attacked soldiers on patrol. The U.S. Army dispatched expeditions into the interior of Mindanao to destroy Moro strongholds. Thousands of American soldiers gradually destroyed major Muslim resistance by 1906. The bloody conquest of the Philippines was criticized by many American politicians, and thousands of American soldiers had been killed. The U.S. Army was pressured to train a force of Philippine constables to deal with the insurgents. Hollywood produced a 1939 movie, The Real Glory, starring Gary Cooper, about this effort.
Captain Hartley, it's your job to make soldiers out of these Filipinos if you have to work them 24 hours a day. From now on, it's drill. Drill, drill, drill.
Left arm, cut and parry. Engage. Right arm, cut and parry. Engage. Right. Left. Hey, you, number 3, right press. Chest out. Stomach in. Right shoulder. Front. Away. Hey, you. Forward. Double time. March. Hurry it up. Hurry it up. Come on. Over the wall. Come on. Come on. Come on. Get those two guns. Stand back on the top. Stand the wall.
After World War II, the Philippines became an independent nation and continued to subdue Muslims in Mindanao. In the 1970s, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos addressed the problem by flooding Mindanao with Christians. He began a program of land grants and incentives to encourage Christians from overcrowded Cebu Island in the central Philippines to move to the large undeveloped island of Mindanao. This caused much friction, but Christians now outnumber Muslims in Mindanao. Strong Muslim influence was reduced to western Mindanao, depicted in green. The Muslim rebel problem was nearly gone until the Americans inflamed it in the 1980s. The CIA recruited Muslims from Mindanao to fight in Afghanistan against the Soviets alongside radical fundamentalists led by Osama bin Laden. After that conflict, hundreds of CIA-trained jihadists returned to Mindanao, who made contacts with Saudi allies and charities who provided funds to teach Muslim fundamentalism in Mindanao. This led to the formation of a small terrorist group that became known as Abu Sayyaf. There are lots of news reports alleging the American CIA was involved in this effort, since terror attacks justified more CIA funding. See the links below. After the 9/11 terror attacks in 2001, the American empire sought to expand its influence worldwide. President George Bush insisted the Philippines was threatened by Muslim extremism and needed American military assistance. The U.S. military established small bases in the Philippines and provided millions of dollars in military aid. This was ridiculous because Christians account for 95% of Filipinos and are even the majority in Mindanao. The Philippine Army is large, competent, and the Muslim rebels are a minor threat in an isolated region. Muslim unrest had mostly disappeared as television and the internet lured younger Muslims to adopt mainstream Filipino culture and reduced the influence of religious and tribal leaders. Abu Sayyaf is mostly engaged in kidnapping for ransom and armed robbery, not terrorism. Small groups of Muslim rebels occasionally attack Philippine government offices and soldiers, but these are minor irritants for the capable Philippine Army. In addition, news reports indicate that Filipino generals play a role in profitable kidnapping and robbery schemes and receive money from the American CIA to conduct bombings. See the links below for details. These claims seem outrageous, but two incidents provide undeniable evidence. On May 16, 2002, Michael Meiring, a U.S. citizen, was staying in a cheap hotel room in Davao City on the island of Mindanao. Police were called after an explosion. They found him with serious injuries caused by an ammonium nitrate bomb that he was assembling. He was taken to a nearby hospital. The next day, American FBI agents appeared at the hospital and spirited him away to Manila in a private jet, saying that he needed a higher level of care. Somehow, Meiring ended up in the United States and disappeared. An arrest warrant was issued in the Philippines, but he was never arrested or extradited from the United States, and apparently died in 2010. When asked about this embarrassing event, the American ambassador spouted nonsense.
But there's one that's quite recent that I wanted to ask you, which would be the Meiring case. When he came back, he said, I asked the U.S. to give me a report on the Meiring case, and they never got back to me. So, Mr. Ambassador, what really happened? He accuses the U.S. of taking him, spiriting him away.
Well, a couple of things.
Go ahead.
One is, my understanding from our records is that that information was provided at the time. I know that in the last few months, in fact in June during the transition, the information and more information was provided. And so we have provided information about the Meiring case. Our understanding of what happened was an American citizen. His motive's still a bit unclear.
Okay.
We have American citizens who are around the world who have nothing to do with the United States government, who go off on their own. They do strange things. In this case, maybe looking for as a fortune hunter, he blew himself up literally in his hotel room. May have lost 2 legs, 1 leg, I'm not sure. There was no stop order on him at the time. This is what our records show.
Yeah.
And he was transported by an international air ambulance with no stop order, no arrest order, for further treatment because his family wanted to make sure that his life was saved and wanted advanced medical care. That's our understanding of it. I hope that this should not be the be-all and end-all of our relationship between the United States and the Philippines. All I can do, all the embassy can do, all the United States government can do is to provide the information as we know it.
Yeah.
And I hope that it is accepted and that we can then go on to serious matters of government-to-government relations.
Yeah.
Another incident was the 2002 Oakwood Mutiny, when 41 junior Filipino military officers led 184 enlisted men in an armed protest. These elite Army Special Forces troops occupied the Oakwood Shopping Center in Manila for 2 days and demanded change. They accused Defense Secretary Angelo Reyes and Military Intelligence Chief Brigadier General Victor Corpus of staging bombings in Mindanao and selling weapons to rebel groups. This justified more military aid from the United States, some of which was pocketed by generals. Reyes and Corpus resigned, and the incident buried. These events worsened relations with the United States. A 2020 report from the U.S. Defense Department Acting Inspector General Sean O'Donnell noted that the United States has been spending around $100 million each year to help fight terrorism in Mindanao, and it's had no effect. See the link below. The Philippine Army needs no help, and some terror attacks are the result of false flag operations used to justify American aid. Ending America's fake war on terror in the Philippines would improve relations, save money, curtail corruption, and lessen violence.